Hello there. In this video, let's talk about convolution neural networks, which are also referred as CNN. So these networks have the multiple kernels. With kernels are the square matrix, and these kernels convolve with the images, like they moved around these images, and they finally output a latent representation of image. So this is how CNN functions, and basically these kernels are learned during backpropagation. So suppose our task is to classify whether this image is of man or this is of woman. So then like we can train multiple kernels, and these kernels will convolve around the images like this, and the latent representation of image will be output. So this latent representation will be in form of vector, and using those vectors we can classify whether it's a man or woman. So this is how the CNN functions at very high level. Mostly CNNs are used for image and audio datasets, but they have some limited applications in NLP too. So now let's talk about how image is represented digitally. So suppose this is a grayscale image, which is 1024 comma 1024 image. So this image has like multiple pixels. Each pixel have like a range of floating points from 0 to 255. 255 means it's black, and 0 means it's purely white. So this is how the grayscale image is represented. So you can also flatten out an image and perform classification by some linear classifier too, but that is not gonna be as powerful as CNN. And similarly, there are the three images with the three channels. So this is a RGB image. So it has a three channels like red, green and blue. So these three channels are dot producted, and you can see like a mixture of these three colors. So this is a resultant of a dot product. So here we have like similarly in the grayscale we have three different channel, and each of the channel has a range of floating points from 0 to 255. 255 means very red, and 0 means completely white. So similarly in case of green too, 255 means high green, and lesser value means lower green. So this is how image is represented in three channels. So similarly channels can also increase. So there are some channels which are outside the visible spectrum of human eye, so which I will be talking about it briefly a little later. Now let's talk about some basic components of the CNN. So the first one is kernel. So the kernel is a square matrix of the trainable weights which are learned during backpropagation, and this each of the kernel in deep neural network acts as a different filter which is aggregating the information in the different way. So that is a main intuition. And the second one is strides. I want to skip the padding for a little while. The strides are like how long how fast the kernels are moving. Suppose if we are moving the kernel by a stride of 1, it is moving 1 pixel by pixel. If we increase the stride to s is equal to 2, then it will move a little faster. So the faster the strides move, then the lower the information it's gonna capture. And the third thing is pooling. The pooling is nothing but it is just the way of taking maximum out of a square matrix. Suppose this is an image. If we want to do a max pooling, so then it will take the maximum of this square matrix. So this is a pooling, and pooling is used in reducing the dimensionality. So the a tricky part is padding. So normally there are some images which are normally cropped like this. Suppose if we manage the image like this of Fawad Khan, then the edge detection is gonna be difficult because the full part of the image is not there. We are not having the full part of image. So what we do is we add some extra padding. We add some extra padding like this around that image. So that extra padding makes sure that we can classify this edge detection better. So that is why padding is added outside the image in the some cases. If we are just having a cropped images, then it's wiser to add padding so that edge detection is better. So now let's understand all this by some animations, because now let's suppose we have an image which is of 5 comma 5, and the kernel size is 2 comma 2. So like normally in the CNN what happens is like over the image the kernels are being moved like this in this linear fashion. So this movement is called stride of 1. So similarly this movement like this from here to here is called stride of 2. So stride is like the length of the step which the kernel is taking while moving the linearly. So these four pixels are just aggregating the information from these four to here. So like the edges from the here 4 pixels are being aggregated over here. So similarly if the stride length is increased, then the output size is also gonna decrease, and like so this is how the CNN works. So now let's try to increase the stride length over here. Yeah, it's not working. Yeah, so as you can see, I have increased the stride length to 3. So the output dimensionality is reducing. So the smaller the stride length is, the like the more aggregation of the information it's going to take place, and similarly, CNN gonna have more like time complexity. So this is the concept of the stride. So now you can play with this diagram from this blog, and all the credits goes to these authors like who worked very hard for this beautiful blog. So you can play over here. Now let's suppose we have a grayscale image, like black and white image of a very famous actress of Pakistan, which is Myra Khan. So and we want to detect whether she is a woman or man. So what we are gonna do is we're gonna have the 100 kernels. This is like very basic idea. Like the normally CNNs are very deep. So suppose we have 100 kernels. So each of the kernels is initialized with random Gaussian weights. So each of the kernel is initialized with a different Gaussian weights, and like all the kernels are different. So they are also gonna learn differently during back propagation. So what it means is like as each of the kernel is moving over here during the back propagation, each of the kernel is gonna detect the different edges. Like so whenever it is moving over the black and white image of Myra Khan, one kernel is going to detect this kind of slanting edges, the other kernels is going to detect this kind of nose, this kind of edge, and other is going to detect the some patterns in hand. So this all happens. So all the kernels are learning different edge properties of the image, and after like back propagation, so these all are concatenated. So this we have the latent encoding. We have the latent encoding of this image, and this latent encoding can be further sent to some fully connected or network. So this neural network is then aggregating the information from this latent encoding, and we are able to classify it easily. So this all is happening in the CNN. So some of you might be still thinking, why CNNs, like why not flatten the image, why not perform the classification easily. So like why CNN? Like because the CNN have a less parameters. Like so how less? Suppose that image was 128 comma 128, and we flattened that out, and output vector is 16K. And as you can see, like the number of weights in the fully connected neural network is gonna be like very large. So and similarly, if we are having the 10 kernels, so we are just learning 99 weights. So here we were learning thousands of the weight. So the number of the weights are being reduced in the CNNs. And this concept is also related to weight sharing. Like so what is happening is these kernels are being swiped down to image like this, and they are learning some low level intrinsic edges from the image. Intrinsic edges, I mean. So if we are just having the fully connected neural network like this, then we are going to have 16K weights, and here we are just performing the same amount of thing by just 99 weights. So you can see like there's huge reduction in the the number of weights and also the complexity. So like the back propagation of learning these thousands of weights are gonna take like huge time. And second thing, so translation equivariance is also very important property, right? Like, so here let's suppose we have an image of same actress, which is Myra Khan. So we rotated the image into someone by from left to right. So if we are gonna just flatten it out and just try to perform the classification, so these two images are gonna have the different vector representation in the embedding space. So it means is like these two images are gonna be different. Whereas the CNNs are invariant to position. So what it means is like how CNNs become the invariant to position is like the kernels are loosely coupled from the image and they are learned during back propagation. So these are learned and they are loosely coupled, so they are not associated with the image. So whereas in case of this deep neural network performing the image processing tasks, each of the image is being tightly case the each of the image is being tightly coupled to the neural network. So kernels are also performing the loose coupling and just and it's also reducing some optimization errors like so that is why CNNs are able to perform much better in image processing and audio processing tasks because of the kernels which are loosely coupled from the data. So that's how CNN works. uh, like the earlier convolution I was talking about in this task was 1D of grayscale. In case of 3 channels, we can have the 3D convolution. It means like the kernels is gonna be also 3D, which is 3 comma 3 comma 3 or 2 comma 2 comma 2. So now let's talk about depth-wise convolution. So depth-wise convolution is like a channel-wise convolution. So what it's doing is like here we are having the separate convolution filters for each channels. So we are just having like multiple channels in one image. In this case of RGB image, like we are having 3 channels and we are just having the separate kernels for each of the image. So this way like they are able to aggregate channel wise information a way better than in case of spatial convolution. The earlier convolution is called spatial domain. So this way it's able to detect the channel wise features a way better than than the normal spatial convolution. So now let's talk about hyperspectral images, the most of the world we see using our eyes. So that is narrow spectrum of the wavelength in our universe. So the most of the wavelengths they are present in this universe, they are outside the visible spectrum. So but those wavelengths which are not visible to us, they also have the some important informations like which can be not seen using some naked eye. So to capture that, the hyperspectral camera is present. So hyperspectral camera can capture thousands of different channels. Like earlier we were talking about 3 channels, so this there can be thousands or thousand or millions of colors which are not visible to naked eye. So those also encode some relevant information. In example, in case of agriculture, we can detect the disease using hyperspectral images. Like, so these images are normally very high dimensional and they are having a lot of information. So it also requires a lot of data to store a single image. So related to this, I read one paper. Let's talk briefly about that paper also. So this was a paper which I want to talk briefly about this. So what they did was like they were able to compress these hyperspectral images into very low dimensional hidden encoding, and like they reduced the memory required to store this image, and that was all. So this was a neural network they used. They also used some depth-wise convolution and all that. So now let's talk about a popular. So for more information, you can read this paper. So that was all. Now let's talk about UNet. UNet was a state-of-the-art architecture which was proposed in 2015 by the researchers. So what was so special about UNet was it was able to segment biomedical image using convolution neural networks. So image segmentation, as we all know, it's very difficult task as compared to classification. So why it's difficult? Because image classification is like merely classification of image into two or three categories or maybe multiple categories, whereas in segmentation we have to encode the pixel level details, like we have to classify the pixel level information, and like it is also very compute intensive. And so in this example what I have written is like in the unit architecture, brain diagram is feed forwarded, and after the inference we are able to segment the brain into three or four or multiple different segments. So it's used in biomedical domain, and like the doctors can use this image. So this was a scope to understand the unit. It's better to divide it into two parts. First is encoder and second is decoder. The task of the encoder is to capture high level features of an image. By high level features, what I mean is like overall diagram of the image, like for example the outline of a brain, and this is high level feature. So to achieve this, the image channels are upscaled through successive convolution operations. So at starting we have one channel and they are upscaled to 64, and consequently it's upscaled to 512 dimensional latent representation of an image. During decoder part, what it's done is like the number of channels are successively downscaled. So this is successively downscaled, and information is aggregated through residual connections, and like its information is also added. And like what the encoder is doing, it's capturing only high level features, whereas decoder is capturing low level features which are very useful in the image segmentation. And also it is also taking the information from the encoder part, which incorporates high level features. So it aggregates both high level and low level features, and finally we get a segmented image of brain which is like of very high quality and of very high precision. So this is how like a unit architecture is able to capture both high level and low level features. And like residual connections are like responsible for the sharing of information. So that was all. Now let's talk about vision transformers. So vision transformers was proposed in this paper, and image is worth 16 cross 16 words. So this paper proposed a transformer based architecture which was using attention mechanism, and it was able to perform the image processing better than CNN. But when provided with more data and more number of epochs and more resources, as the transformers are quadratic in both space and time. So that is why it was able to perform better than CNN. like uh, why it was performing better than CNN was like CNN was focusing more on local context, like whereas transformers, due to the attention mechanism, it was able to focus globally on the image, like it was able to focus each and every pixel, whereas it was focusing more on local context, some specific pixel which are of our interest. So these are some inductive biases. All these are possible because like convolution operation is like having a local inductive biases, whereas attention has global inductive biases. So that was all. Now let's talk about the architecture of vision transformer. An image is divided into square patches. So it is divided evenly into square patches, and these patches are then flattened out. And after flattening out, some positional information is encoded, and this information is a sinusoidal in nature, and it makes sure that the model knows that which patch is at which position. Like this patch is at 0 position, it will encode that whether it's at 0 position, and this patch is at ninth position, it will encode that it's at 9 position. So after this the normalization is done, and normalization has like some benefits in during back propagation, and back propagation is way faster. because of the normalization. And also it has some optimization benefits too, and after patches are embedded, and these embedded patches are feed forwarded into normalization layer. Like this is basically layer normalization. What it does is like it makes sure that like optimization is better during back propagation. So after that, like there is an attention mechanism. Attention mechanism, as we all are familiar with, each of the token is linearly projected into three different triplets, which are key, query, and value. So they are different vectors in embedding space, and the weights of these vectors are learned during back propagation. And and finally there is a row wise softmax is done after performing the dot product between key and query. So as we all know, the matrix multiplication is also a special form of inner dot product. And of and this softmax makes sure that this kind of distribution is being this kind of probabilistic distribution is being outputted after performing this kind of operation. And finally we multiply this with the value. So on the to understand it better, you have to like dive deep into my previous two videos which are related to attention mechanism. So after that, the image is being encoded into some latent vector representation, and that vector representation encodes the nature of image. So what this transformer based encoder will do is it will take this image and it will encode it into fixed size embedding. So this fixed size embedding can be used for classification tasks, and like you can also make it work for image generation tasks and all that. So that was all. Thank you for the listenings. Have a great weekend.